Hey, hey, hey. Okay, welcome to video number 9, day number 8, because I do include the intro of 21 days of prayer for your business. We are so thankful that you continue to come back day after day and watch these videos. Maybe you're binge watching them. Maybe this is the very first one that you've watched. If so, you need to go back and check out the others. But we are walking through a book called 21 Days of Prayer for Your Business. I wrote it a few years back, maybe about 6 or 7 years from the time that I'm recording this video. And we decided to kind of walk through it ourselves. We've got some big decisions and some things that we're stepping into. I did not hit the little button here, but I did now. Huh?
It's okay, keep going.
It's okay, keep going, Monique. Don't get sidetracked. But anyway, we've got some decisions and some things that we're kind of processing through, and we decided, hey, you know, we love to devote a specific time of prayer when we're making any type of big decision. So we're walking through this each day, coming on and doing a video. And I love it because we are at a different place in our lives, in a different season. I mentioned that in the intro. And we just like kind of talking through this because possibly if you're going through this, you are at a crossroads, or maybe you're praying for something specific that's new, or you're having to be bold and courageous and step into some new things, or you're unclear of. And I just feel like we're at a place that it can be very relatable, right?
Yep.
We don't have to go back and repeat all of that. But I am going to repeat something that I do on every single video because I think it's important. If you do not have this book, it is A-OK. You just join in on the conversations, and I hope you have a notebook and a pen because I like to get nosy-rosy and get all up in your business and ask a lot of questions. And today is no exception. Do you like questions being asked of you?
Not really.
Not really.
Not spontaneously on the spot.
He said, before we got started, I always like to say, do you have any thoughts? And he's like, well, I'm going to answer because in the last videos, you just spring it on me. So you like to be prepared.
I'll chime in. No need to prompt me.
No need to prompt him. Today, we are talking about living a life of worship. I love this topic. It's so interesting. I read a book. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I mentioned in this about a lady named Darlene Zschech, and she is a worship singer. She still is, but she was very, very popular back in the 90s, I guess it was. Yeah. If you've been around the Christian world, time does fly. If you've been around the Christian world for a while, she had the song Shout to the Lord. And it was when we were in school in Illinois. And I just think she has such an amazing voice, but she also has a gift of leading you into worship. And about 10 years ago, when we were praying for a specific area and direction of our lives, I tell in the book a story that I was sitting in a room and I was listening to some worship music and one of her songs came on, and I just thought in my head, man, Lord, I wish I could sing like that. I just thought it. And it was like instantly I was having this conversation with the Lord. It wasn't audible, but it kind of felt audible. And it was like, hey, that's not the gift I gave you. And you know, you're kind of like, okay. And it kind of like the thoughts that I was processing was, she is using the gift the Lord gave her in worship to Him. It just so happened to have been worship music. And I really just felt like the Lord was saying, Monique, all you have to do is use your gifts that I gave you in worship to me. And that's what it's all about. Hers just so happened to be singing. And, you know, again, in the Christian world, we think worship music, we think worship leader, but you know, worship is like what we are giving honor to or what we're giving praise to. It's not just the music time of a service that you go to at church. It's actually an act of this worship that we're giving into to the Lord. Hold on, let me turn this off. And so I find that super interesting that after I wrote this book, and I even made that reference in the book, do you know that she wrote a book? I think it's titled, I'll leave it in the description of the video here, but I think it's called Worship Changes Everything. And it's about that very, very topic, about worshiping the Lord with your life, with every aspect of your life. And that's what today's study is all about. Any thoughts, or do you want me to keep going? Sorry that I'm you're like, Monique, stop it.
We discussed this before the video, so I don't know why you're asking me.
I'm putting you on the spot and making you feel very
Yeah, and I had a
uncomfortable.
thought, and now I forgot it.
Okay, you just interrupt me whenever that massively bright
I
idea.
remember.
Okay.
I remember when you had that conversation with the Lord, and then He told you that, and you were like, well, how the heck do I do that? And so that was an interesting conversation of like, what does that look like? Like, what if you're a fireman, or what if you're a policeman, or what if you're a teacher? Like, how does that look in different professions? You know, we were in sales, so it's we were thinking, how are we going to do that? But it's really just going out every day. Sorry, I needed to sneeze earlier.
This is real life. We're
Going
just
out
rolling
every
with it.
day, and what in everything you do, just acknowledging Him. Like, man, what a great month we had. Couldn't have done it without the Lord. In our lives. He did this here. He did this here, and it wouldn't have been as good if He wouldn't have done those things. And so that's sort of how we decided. Well, I think that's how to do it.
Yeah, and that goes back to our very first video of giving Him control. I mean, honestly, when you give Him control, I mean, that is that act of acknowledging that you need Him, and then mentioning that and speaking that and saying that. That's walking out that worship, that it's all about Him and where He's leading and where He's guiding. We're in the process right now of just some big decisions in our family and in our life. And, as I was sitting here kind of processing it all and kind of making out a list here versus here, at the end of the day, I'm just like, Lord, whatever we do it in worship to You. No matter where we are, what we do, like, it is in worship to You. And you can never go wrong when that's your story, and when that's because He's with you. I was telling Jer, I believe it's somewhere in Joshua, but basically the Lord is like, wherever you step your foot, I am with you. And I could have butchered that up a little bit, so you might want to go reference it yourself. But basically, it's wherever you're at, I'm with you. And I kind of feel like that's just kind of the take to have, is whatever I'm doing, whatever You put before me, whatever I step into, I want to do that in worship to You. So what does that look like, in regards to business? Well, that was a great question. At the time of me praying that and having that conversation, like Jeremiah said, it was this business that we were praying for. And I remember specifically saying, well, how does that look in business? Like, literally, how do you live a life of worship, and how do I use my gifts and talents in worship to the Lord in business? But follow through 10 years later, I mean, I walked people through 21 Days of Prayer. I actually wrote a book about it that people walked through that was connected with business stuff. We were able to speak and share our testimony and point people to the Lord along the way. And it's just as simple as that. It could be a teacher that, has a conversation with a kid that marks them for life. I talk very often of my first real manager working at Macy's. He made such an impact in my life just from the example that he lived and he walked out. And so sometimes we think that the only people that live a life in worship to the Lord, are the pastors and the worship leaders and the missionaries. They're the ones that's doing the big God work out there. But no, it's every single person. That's what we're called to do, right?
Yeah, and I'm always reminded of this funny story when where we met in school. It was a ministry training school, and so one day somebody said, hey, let's go witness. And that's kind of, I guess, old school 90s speak for let's go tell someone about Jesus. And that sort of terrified me when he said that. I was like, okay. And so we went to the mall, and he's like, hey, go tell that guy. I was like, what? And to me, there might be a place for that, but to me that wasn't really living a life of worship. Like, I'm just walking to some random person. You know, there might be a place for that if you feel led to, but that wasn't what I was feel led to do right then. I was feel led to like run away and hide. And so through the years, I've thought of that, and I've thought, you know, like it's super easy to go, gosh, my life has been so amazing, like because of God. Like that's easy to sort of tell your story, and I like this analogy of like, say you're river rafting, and you're gonna go from one point on the river down to another point on the river, but like you basically just hanging on for dear life. But there's a guy or a girl back there with a paddle, like steering that boat, and it's like I picture myself just going, when we get to where we're going, like, dude, you're the best guide I've ever had. Like, you're amazing. And that's sort of the same thing in life. It's like I'm sort of hanging on for dear life, getting to point A to point B, and God's back there like, I got you. I'm steering it. I know where I'm going. I have a lot of experience in this river, and I'm just like, all right, well, high five. Like, that's amazing. Like you said on an earlier video, people see religion as a crutch, and it's like, yeah, I see God as my riverboat guide.
He's your riverboat guide, and he's your bowling bumpers.
Yeah. Hashtag all the analogies.
I'm such a visual person, so I love it when Jared chimes in with these, because I literally will get that in my mind and I always think of it. But like when you can tell those kind of stories and you can go, hey, these are the ways that the Lord, this is my story, this is my testimony, this is what the Lord has done for me. That is in worship to Him, and that is making a difference.
But you can do that like with your business.
Right.
Like if your business is going really well, you can say, hey, business is good. I've just been so blessed. Stuff like that, you know.
And just, you know, the interactions that you have with your coworkers, I mean, I think when I worked as a nurse, I mean, there are people that I was able to talk to and that, you know, I would share some things that I felt led to share. Whether you were probably supposed to do that or not, I did. And, you know, it can be in whatever area. And let's just stay on the topic of gifts and talents and things of that nature. I want you to think and write down in your notebook, what are some of your gifts and talents? We talked about it, actually. You should already have it written down if you've done the Uniquely Made video and gone through that. But look at that list. If you haven't, go ahead and write that list down and ask the Lord, how can I use these in worship to you? You know, for me, I'm thinking, how can I use sales? You know, feeling like I was kind of gifted in that area of sales and business. How can I use that in worship to Him? You know, we kind of think, oh, well, we know how an author or a singer or a speaker could use it, but how is somebody who has the gift of like hospitality or, you know, of helps, being that helper, how can I use that in worship to you? That's just something that I want you to think on and pray over and ask the Lord to kind of prompt you and show you in that. And I think even when you just step out and say, because I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't know what sorry, it's my daughter and she's pregnant. And sometimes I'm concerned when she just keeps calling me. But ask yourself that. If it's something that you're unsure of, because I was unsure of that with business, but just give it to the Lord and say, I know you gave me this gift. I know you gave me this talent, and how can I use it in worship to you? So that's kind of your first little area of homework. And then the next thing I would say is, let me read this verse to you really quick. Write this verse down too, if you don't mind. It's Isaiah 55, 8-9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. And you know, that's another thing that you know, we don't understand sometimes in our human capacity. Like, I didn't understand how business could be used or whatever, but His ways are way higher than what my ways are. And this verse kind of gets a little bit off of the topic of living a life of worship, but just in kind of some decisions that we're trying to make right now. My human mind wants to go, well, but that's my human mind. And I have to know that His ways are way higher than my ways. And we like to say, even Lord, if I don't even understand it on this side of eternity, like maybe I don't even understand until I get to heaven, you know, I'm going to keep stepping and prompting. I love that we're walking through these videos. I can't tell you this past week how many times I've said, I've gone through the vision, okay, Lord, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path, and I'm only seeing this next step, but you see the end picture. That's a great one for you to go.
Talking about that his ways are higher than our ways, Pastor Chris always used to say, he's like, do you really want a God that can fit like up here between these ears? Like, I don't. I'm totally okay with not understanding everything, and I want it to be that way, because it's like I want a God that is so much bigger than my understanding, because if it fit in here, that wouldn't be very impressive.
He would not be a very big God if he could fit into our, you know, capacity of our brains. Like, he is so much bigger than that. And I find freedom in that, even though I still sometimes want to get caught up in our human fleshly mind. The next thing that that I hit on is, you know, it's easy to go, okay, for our gifts and talents, but how can we take that even a step further? How can we look and say, Lord, we use this house, these things that you've given us, in worship to you? I know there was a time that when we lived in Utah for a period of time, this beautiful house up in the mountains, and we were just like, Lord, we want to use this house in worship to you. And we were able to have some retreats, and we were able to have some people there. And so we like to think of even our physical things, like, how can we use this piece of land or this house or this whatever in worship to you? How can this relationship be used in worship to you? How can my parenting be used in worship to you? It's an act of worship. Like, thinking of that, like, you know, I've been thinking here lately, my girls, with her, you know, calling me, I've been trying to be so present, and so whenever they need something, especially with, you know, they've got babies now, we've got grandbabies, and I told Jeremiah, I'm like, if they need us, the answer is yes. And like, I think of that when I say yes, and we're kind of feeling exhausted, like, this is an act of worship. Like, I am watching these grandbabies, even because I love them, but like, how can this be done in worship to you? So think about that. How can my time be used in worship to you? How can my conversations be used in worship to you? How can my money, the money that he gives us, be used in worship to him? Everything we have can be in worship to him. Thoughts, or can I keep going? Because I have another thought. Okay. Finally, and I'll kind of end on this note. I was reading this book, Worship Changes Everything by Darlene Zschech. I was reading it actually when we were on a cruise. We were on a Disney cruise. We were actually doing very well in our business. We had an extra chunk of change, and we booked a concierge suite on the Disney cruise ship. It was a super extravagant, expensive vacation that we booked. And we had been on several of these cruises before and stayed cramped up in the smallest room we could find, right? And I'm sitting there on this massive deck that we had that was covered. It was just beautiful. And I'm sitting there and I'm reading this book, Worship Changes Everything. And I could hear some people, and there was this little moment that kind of creeped over me of like feeling a little guilty that we were going on such an extravagant trip, when, you know, some people couldn't afford this trip, or, you know, some people are having to scrape by to do this big trip, and here we just booked this lavish trip. And so anyway, I'm reading the book, and my daughter comes out on the deck and she says, "Hey, Mom, do you want to walk with me into the concierge lounge? I want to grab something." And I said, "Yes." So I set my book down and I go in there, and it was just Alyssa and I, and we began to talk to this lady who was in there, and we became friends with her. And long story short, we were able to form a relationship. And we were able to go on cruises after that and connect with her and stay in contact with her. An amazing girl from Zimbabwe who has an amazing testimony. And what I would do is when I was on these trips and I was there, whatever book I was reading, I would leave with her so she could read. And we would talk about it, on the next trip we went on. I think we were on like 3 trips. But when I went back to the room, and I picked my book back up, Worship Changes Everything, it talks about how we can use our finances, or how, that can be used in worship to Him. And I got to thinking how before I went to go talk in there to her, my mind was fixated on, I was feeling so bad, but how I had the opportunity, because of the blessings of this money, to be in a position to where I was there, to be able to connect with this lady and us have this ongoing. Does that make sense? That kind of went off on a wild goose chase, but I loved that was the very next topic, with how we can use our money in worship to Him. And even in that moment, we were still able to connect it somehow to the Lord. I don't know if that makes sense, but it really spoke to me in the moment, especially with what mind games I was struggling with.
Yeah, I think just looking for those opportunities wherever they come, that you can really do it in any situation, any place, any time, with anybody. Like, there's always an opportunity. So just being mindful of those opportunities, and even praying for those opportunities.
Yes.
Like, just, hey, when you go out the door in the morning, Lord, help me have an opportunity to tell people about you, or shine light, be a light to them. Like, just pray for that before you leave for the day. Even that, I think, is worship.
Yeah, I mean, leaving a tip at a restaurant that is a little extra, and leaving a little note, and like just thinking of you, or, said a little prayer for you. I don't know, whatever it is, or maybe it's just the tip in general, that I'm doing this in worship to you. And so I hope some of these things kind of strike an aha moment with you as we discuss it. I mentioned that in the book too. A lot of times people asked how they could pray for me whenever I was writing this book. And, I told them, don't pray for the things that I'm writing. Pray that people, as they're reading it, that they have that aha moment with the Lord. And that's what I pray that you're having through this. Not just things that we say are aha things that we may bring to the table, but that the Lord prompts something in your mind. That is that aha moment. Okay, I'm going to leave you with a couple of verses. Well, just one verse that we mentioned here. It was Isaiah 55, 8-9. Would you memorize that? Would you meditate on it? Would you think on it? The other things that I said was, ask the Lord to show you ways that you can use blessings in your life in worship to Him. Ask the Lord ways that you can use your gifts and talents in worship to Him. And I'm telling you, you can never go wrong when you're walking out that life of worship.
All right.
You good?
Yeah.
He's gonna do his drill, guys. He's gonna do his drill.
Hey, if you like this video, or you just didn't hate it, give it a big thumbs up down at the bottom, like it. And it also would really help our channel if you would subscribe, and maybe tell some friends about it. And last but not least, hit that notification bell to be in the know when we post a new video.
Yes, it's so cool because I've been seeing some people when the videos pop up, they must be getting the notifications because I haven't even shared or said anything about it, and they're seeing the videos and watching it.
Boom.
Tomorrow, do you want to know what we're talking about? If you don't have the book, I'm going to clue you in. Day number 9, embracing excellence. I feel like we need some inserts, some dramatic music.
That's a good chapter. I like that chapter.
Embracing excellence is good, but it is not to be confused with perfectionism, which is the day after that. All right. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you back in the next video. See ya.